I, 21F, and my boyfriend Noah, 23M, have been dating for almost 3 years now and are currently living with his parents after our apartment flooded last month. I'm 12 weeks pregnant, and Noah's mom just shared our news with everyone after we specifically asked her not to. Some background. Noah and I met in college. He was studying business while I was in nursing school, and moved in together about a year ago. We weren't planning on having a baby yet, but here we are. I work night shifts at a rural hospital, about 30 minutes from Noah's parents' house, and public transportation is basically non-existent here, so I have to drive. About 5 weeks ago, we had a major pipe burst in our apartment building that flooded several units, including ours. The landlord said repairs would take 6 to 8 weeks minimum, and we couldn't afford a short-term rental on top of still paying rent for our damaged apartment. Noah's parents offered to let us stay with them, and since my parents live 3 states away, we accepted. I should mention that last year I had a miscarriage at 8 weeks. We had excitedly told Noah's family as soon as we found out, and then having to untell everyone was honestly one of the most painful experiences of my life. Everyone kept asking questions and offering unsolicited advice about trying again when I was still grieving. Still makes me emotional thinking about it. So, when we found out I was pregnant again, we decided to wait until after the first trimester to share the news with anyone except immediate family. We specifically told Noah's parents that we wanted to keep this private until we reached 12 weeks, and made a point to mention that Great Aunt Ruth should absolutely not find out yet. This aunt has always made little comments about me distracting Noah from joining the family business, and I knew she would have opinions about the pregnancy. Noah's mom, Diane, seemed supportive at first. She hugged me and said she understood completely after what happened last time. She even teared up a bit and said she was honored we trusted her with the news. His dad, Robert, was also cool about it and promised to respect our wishes. Fast forward to yesterday. I had just finished a 12-hour night shift, which is already exhausting, and pregnancy isn't making it any easier to be. All I wanted was to sleep. I walked into the house so I wouldn't wake anyone, but I heard Diane talking in the kitchen. As I approached, I realized she was on the phone discussing nursery ideas and saying things like, "I can't wait to help them set it all up, and I think they should go with the traditional family crib." I stood in the doorway, still in my scrubs. When she turned and saw me, she quickly said goodbye and hung up. But here's the thing. She didn't even look guilty. She actually looked annoyed that I had caught her. I asked who she was talking to, already dreading the answer, and she casually said, "Oh, just Aunt Ruth." I had to tell her about the baby. She would be so hurt if she found out later than everyone else. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I reminded her that we had specifically asked them not to tell anyone, especially Ruth. I was exhausted and honestly felt betrayed, so my voice probably wasn't the calmest. Pregnancy hormones are real, y'all. I explained again how important this privacy was to us after what happened last time. Do you know what she said? She told me I was being hormonal and that Ruth is family and deserves to know. She acted like I was being completely unreasonable for expecting her to keep our private medical information private. Our previous experience meant nothing to her. When Noah got home from work a few hours later, I was trying to sleep but couldn't because I was so upset. Diane immediately started crying and told him I had attacked her for just being an excited grandmother-to-be. She completely twisted what happened. Instead of immediately having my back, Noah looked at me and asked why I confronted his mom instead of waiting to discuss it with him first. I felt hurt. This wasn't just about sharing news. This was about respecting a boundary we had both clearly established. And now he was making me feel like I had done something wrong by standing up for myself and us. We had the most awkward dinner ever that night. Diane kept sniffling and giving me these hurt looks while Noah sat there looking uncomfortable. His dad tried to make small talk about the weather, seriously, and I barely touched my food. I just wanted to disappear. After dinner, I went to our temporary bedroom and Noah followed a bit later. He apologized for not supporting me right away and admitted his mom was wrong to share our news. But then he asked if we could avoid conflict until we can move back to our apartment in 2 weeks. He said his mom meant well and that fighting with her while we're dependent on their hospitality would make things really difficult. I get where he's coming from. I do. But I also feel like this isn't just about sharing good news. This is about respect and boundaries. If she can't respect this boundary, what other boundaries will she cross once the baby is here? Will she ignore our parenting decisions? Will she share personal information about our child with whoever she wants? The thought of having to continuously manage these issues for the next 18 plus years is exhausting. At the same time, we don't really have other options right now. The motel near my work is way beyond our budget, especially with baby expenses coming up. My friends in the area all have roommates or tiny apartments, and with my night shift schedule and the rural location, I can't exactly stay on someone's couch an hour away between shifts. Noah says his mom is just excited, and I should try to see it from her perspective. That maybe I'm being too rigid about this, am I? But I feel that this is setting a precedent for how much say his family gets in our lives and our baby's life. I'm stuck in this house for 2 more weeks with someone who violated my trust and then made me seem like I was in the wrong. Noah is trying to keep everyone happy instead of firmly standing with me. And now Ruth has been texting Noah about how we need to honor family traditions with the baby, whatever that means. Thanks for reading all this if you made it this far. I'm honestly at a loss for what to do next. Should I just endure 2 weeks to maintain peace? Or is this an important issue to stand firm on when it comes to establishing boundaries with my future in-laws? Now for the first update. I can't believe it's been a week since I posted about my Mael sharing our pregnancy news with everyone against our wishes. First off, thank you all so much for the support and validation. Seriously, I read every comment and may have cried a bit. So it's been exactly 7 days since I caught Diane blabbing to Great Aunt Ruth about our pregnancy, and somehow things have gotten even worse, because of course they have. I've been working my usual night shifts at the hospital while trying to navigate this family drama. And let me tell you, pregnancy exhaustion plus night shifts plus family tension is not a fun combination. Remember how I mentioned that Diane had told Ruth about the pregnancy? Well, turns out Ruth was just the tip of the iceberg. Why am I not surprised? I found out yesterday that Diane has told literally everyone in their family about the baby. And I mean everyone. Cousins, second cousins, people I've never even met. Someone somehow emailed him congratulations. I'm talking family members whose names I don't even know are now aware of my private medical information. Still processing this, Tiba. Ruth has already called me twice this week. She left these long-winded voicemails about proper prenatal care and how I absolutely must quit my night shifts for the baby's sake, because apparently her Google search trumps my actual medical training as a nurse. I roll. I didn't call her back because honestly, what would be the point? She's already decided I'm doing everything wrong. I should mention that Noah did finally confront his mom about telling everyone our news after I broke down crying for the 3rd night in a row. But instead of apologizing, Diane immediately claimed she couldn't help sharing such wonderful news and that I was turning her son against her. Classic manipulation tactic that she's clearly perfected over the years. Noah's dad has now appointed himself as family peacekeeper. No one asked. He pulled Noah aside yesterday and gave him this whole speech about how we need to forgive and forget because that's just how Diane shows love. As if violating someone's clearly stated boundaries is somehow an expression of love. He keeps saying things like, "You know how your mother gets," as if that excuses everything. It doesn't. To answer the most common questions from my last post: 1. We're scheduled to move back to our apartment in 1 more week. 2. No, we can't afford a hotel in the meantime with baby expenses coming up. 3. Yes, Noah is being more supportive now, but still not as firm with his parents as I'd like. This morning, things reached a whole new level of boundary stomping. I was making myself some breakfast before heading to bed after my shift, night nurse life, when Diane walked into the kitchen. She announced that she'd invited Great Aunt Ruth over for dinner tonight to clear the air. No discussion, no asking if that worked for us, just an announcement. I literally froze. Then Diane had the audacity to add that I should make an effort to look presentable, despite working all night because first impressions with Ruth are so important. When I pointed out that this wasn't my first time meeting Ruth and that she's been cold to me for 2 years, Diane just waved her hand dismissively and said Ruth just needs to see me embracing family traditions, whatever that means. I explained that I needed to sleep during the day because I had another night shift, so I wouldn't be at dinner. Diane's response: She suggested I call in sick because family comes first. The absolute nerve. Then she had the gall to suggest that my prioritization of my career over family functions is why Ruth has reservations about me. As if my job caring for patients is some hobby I can just drop whenever her family wants to have dinner. Still fuming about this. At this point, I was exhausted, frustrated, and done with the conversation. I told Diane firmly that my medical career isn't negotiable, nor is my need for sleep, and that she needs to stop undermining my boundaries. I wish you could have seen her face. Her expression completely hardened as she told me I would never truly be part of this family with that attitude. She added that Noah was raised to respect family hierarchy, whatever that means. As she was walking out of the kitchen, she delivered one final blow. Ruth is considering adding Noah back into her will now that he's starting a proper family, but she needs to see that you're on board with our values. Wait, what? Will. Money. This was the first I'd heard about any of this. When Noah got home and I told him about the confrontation, he was upset, but shocker, still caught between supporting me and years of conditioning to appease his mom and great-aunt Ruth. That's when he finally filled me in on the family money situation, which apparently everyone knew about except me. According to Noah, there's significant family money at stake here. Great-aunt Ruth controls some trust fund that was supposed to be divided among all the grandchildren, but she removed Noah when he decided to support my nursing career instead of joining the family business after college. Now Ruth is dangling the possibility of putting Noah back in the will because we're having a baby, but only if we play by their rules. Editing to add, several people have asked if Noah's family is super wealthy. They're comfortable, but not like mega rich. Ruth's trust is apparently worth enough to pay for a house down payment and college education for kids, which is significant to us given our current financial situation, but not never work again money. The worst part, instead of sleeping today, I've been lying awake realizing this isn't just about a pregnancy announcement. This is about control. This is about whether Noah and I are going to let his family dictate how we raise our child, where we live, and basically every aspect of our lives moving forward. Noah keeps saying he wants us to make our own decisions, but I can see how torn he is about potentially losing this inheritance. We could really use that money, especially with a baby on the way. But at what cost? The strings attached seem to get more entangled every day we stay here. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm exhausted, physically from my work schedule and pregnancy, and emotionally from this constant battle for basic respect. Noah says he's on my side, but then he makes comments about considering all options when it comes to Ruth's offer. I feel like I'm competing with generations of family conditioning and a literal financial incentive for him to choose them over me. Great-aunt Ruth is coming for dinner in about 2 hours. I've taken a sleeping pill, pregnancy-safe one my doctor approved, and locked our bedroom door. Noah promised to tell them I'm resting for my shift tonight and can't be disturbed. We'll see if Diane respects that boundary or if she'll be knocking on the door anyway. I never imagined my pregnancy would be filled with this kind of stress and manipulation. I just want to focus on staying healthy and preparing for our baby, not navigating family politics and inheritance drama. Is it too much to ask for basic privacy and respect? I'll update again after we're back in our apartment next week, assuming everything goes according to plan. Thank you all again for the support and validation. It helps to know I'm not crazy for wanting these basic boundaries. Now for the second update. Update 2. I'm back with news that will probably shock everyone after my last post about the inheritance drama with Noah's family. That got way more attention than I expected. Thank you for the support. It's been 2 weeks since Ruth's dinner, and somehow things have managed to get 1,000 times worse. So we were supposed to be back in our apartment by now. The landlord confirmed the repairs were finished last week, but surprise, surprise, we're still at Noah's parents' place. Why, you ask? Because Noah's dad, Robert, had a minor heart attack 3 days before we were set to move. Not life-threatening, but enough for everyone to freak out. Diane immediately played the "we need family support right now" card, and Noah fell for it. I've been trying my absolute best to just keep the peace. I've been rearranging my sleep schedule around their family functions, despite still working night shifts, which is absolutely destroying my body, Barabu. I'm surviving on maybe 4 to 5 broken hours of sleep most days, but every time I mention being tired, Diane gives me this look like I'm being selfish for even bringing it up. Great Aunt Ruth has basically moved in at this point. She's here every single day, bringing over these ancient family heirlooms for the baby. She brings these yellowed baby clothes from the 1950s and these weird old-fashioned silver rattles that probably contain lead or something. And she's constantly giving me these helpful tips about pregnancy that are so outdated I'd laugh if I wasn't so exhausted. The worst part is that my pregnancy symptoms have gotten so much worse with all this stress and sleep disruption. The morning sickness came back full force, except it's all-day sickness, and I had to call in sick to work twice last week. Diane had the nerve to point this out as evidence that nursing isn't compatible with motherhood, as if millions of nurses haven't successfully managed both for decades. My parents called last night after they noticed how strained I sounded on our weekly calls. They live 3 states away, but offered me a place to stay until things calm down. I'm seriously considering it, but the thought of being separated from Noah during my pregnancy is heartbreaking. Though honestly, I'm starting to wonder if we're already separating in ways that matter more than physical distance. He's been spending more and more time with his dad and Ruth discussing family business opportunities that suddenly materialized after Ruth decided to welcome him back. Things completely imploded last night during family dinner, which I was guilted into attending despite having to work at 11 p.m. Diane was acting weirdly excited all evening, kept saying she had a special surprise that couldn't wait. After dinner, she practically dragged everyone upstairs to what used to be their guest room. She flung open the door, and she had converted the entire room into a nursery, without asking us. The walls were painted pale blue. We don't even know the baby's gender yet. There was an ornate antique crib, and the walls were covered with family photos where I was notably missing from most of them. Great Aunt Ruth was clapping, going on about how finally the baby would have a proper family environment, unlike our modern apartment. I stood there frozen, trying to process what was happening, while everyone seemed to be celebrating around me. When I finally found my voice, I quietly said that we still planned to move back to our apartment once we got the final all clear from maintenance. The room became completely silent. Diane's face did this weird transformation from smiling to wounded in 0.2 seconds. "After all we've done," she said, gesturing around the room. "The nursery is here. Robert needs support. Noah's job opportunity with Ruth's business contact is here. Your apartment is hardly suitable for a baby." I turned to Noah, waiting for him to back me up about our plan to go back to our home. Instead, he hesitated, then suggested that maybe staying longer would be best, at least until after the baby comes. He gave me a pleading look. That's when Ruth decided to announce something important. She announced she'd drawn up paperwork to reinstate Noah in her will and trust fund, which would secure the baby's future. She patted Noah's hand and said he'd shown real family commitment lately. And that's when it hit me. While I've been working nights and sleeping days, Noah has been making plans with his family about our future without my input. Behind my back, I felt like I was in some bizarre alternate reality where everyone but me knew what was happening with my own life. When we finally got back to our room that night, I confronted Noah. It was our first real fight of the pregnancy, maybe our first real fight ever. I told him I felt betrayed by his shifting priorities and asked when exactly he had decided that his family got to dictate our lives. He got defensive immediately, saying his family was just trying to help and that I was too stubborn to see it. The issue came when he suggested I could reduce my hours or switch to day shifts to make things easier, as if giving up the career I've worked so hard for would fix everything, as if the problem was me and not his family's complete disregard for boundaries. I didn't even respond. I just got my overnight bag and started packing enough clothes for a couple days. Noah kept asking what I was doing, but I honestly couldn't even look at him. I told him I needed space to think because I didn't recognize who he was becoming. I used most of my available credit to check into a motel near the hospital. Not the smartest financial move with a baby on the way, but I was desperate. As soon as I locked the door behind me, I called my parents and completely broke down. I finally told them everything. The manipulation, the pressure, the inheritance, all of it. I admitted my biggest fear, that I'm losing control of my life, my relationship, and now my child's future. My mom is wiring me money for a bus ticket home tomorrow, and I honestly don't know if I'm coming back. I've started looking into whether I can transfer my nursing license to their state, Part of me feels guilty for considering taking Noah's child away, but a bigger part feels like I'm fighting for my baby's chance to grow up in a home where autonomy and boundaries are respected. I never thought I'd be 12 weeks pregnant and essentially homeless, choosing between my relationship and my sanity. The worst part is that if we hadn't gotten pregnant, I might have seen this side of Noah and his family before getting this deep. Reading back through this, I realize how naive I was in my original post about this just being about a pregnancy announcement. I've booked a therapy appointment for next week to help process all of this. I'm not making any permanent decisions until I've had some proper sleep and professional advice. We'll update when I have more clarity on what comes next, if anyone's still interested in this mess of a situation. Now for the final update. Final update on the crazy inheritance/pregnancy boundary nightmare that's been my life lately. Thank you all for the overwhelming support on my previous posts. For those asking if I'm okay, I am now, and I'm finally ready to close this chapter of my life. So when I left off last time, I was in a motel after my credit card was maxed out. My parents had just wired me money for a bus ticket home, and I was planning to leave the next morning. I spent that whole night between sobbing and not doing much. My phone kept receiving texts from Noah, but I couldn't bring myself to read them yet. The next morning, I checked my messages. Noah had sent about 20 texts ranging from confused to panicked to genuinely remorseful. The last one said he'd be at the diner across from the hospital all day if I wanted to talk before making any decisions. No pressure, no guilt trips. I honestly wasn't planning to go. I was just going to get on that bus and figure everything out from my parents' house. But something kept nagging at me. I knew I'd regret not giving him one last chance to talk face to face. So I went to the diner around noon. Noah was sitting in a booth by the window, and when he saw me, he looked relieved. He didn't get up or try to hug me, which was good because I might have left. I slid into the booth across from him and just laid it all out. No filter, no sugarcoating. I told him I couldn't live like this anymore, caught between his family's manipulation and his inability to choose our family unit over theirs. I explained that this wasn't just about me anymore, but about our child and what kind of boundaries we'd establish. I love you, I told him, but I will not raise our child in an environment where my autonomy as a mother is constantly undermined by your family. That was probably the most articulate sentence I've ever managed while emotionally wrecked. What happened next shocked me. Noah didn't get defensive or make excuses. He listened. Then he admitted he'd been terrified of disappointing everyone and thought he could make both sides happy without making hard choices. He acknowledged that trying to please everyone, he'd ended up betraying the person who mattered most. The conversation lasted nearly 3 hours. Thank God for the waitress who kept refilling our water and didn't pressure us to leave. We talked about everything: the nursery ambush, Ruth's sudden interest in him again, the way his mom had been speaking for him in family discussions. He confessed that the job with Ruth's contact came with extensive strings attached, essentially binding him to the family business permanently. By the end of our marathon diner session, we'd reached an agreement. We would move back to our apartment immediately. We would start couples counseling. And most importantly, Noah would establish firm boundaries with his family about our privacy and parenting decisions. I was cautiously hopeful, but still skeptical. I agreed to come back to collect my things the next day, and Noah promised to have most of our stuff packed by then. When I arrived at his parents' house the following afternoon, Noah was loading boxes into his car. I went upstairs to grab my personal items from the bedroom and discovered that Diane had gone through my things, organizing them into piles. What should go to the apartment versus what should stay for the nursery. She had packed my nursing uniforms into donation boxes with a sticky note that said, "Won't need these anymore." I was repacking my uniforms when Diane walked in without knocking. She looked upset when she saw what I was doing. Her normally composed behavior was gone. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "I'm packing my things. We're going back to our apartment today." She accused me of brainwashing Noah and destroying their family unity right when Robert was vulnerable and Ruth was finally accepting Noah back. I kept calmly packing. Then she spotted my prenatal vitamins on the nightstand and grabbed them. "I'll hold on to these," she said. "Clearly you're not thinking straight about what's best for my grandchild." That was my breaking point. I reached for the bottle, telling her firmly that she didn't get to control my pregnancy or my child, and that the boundary violations needed to stop now. In the struggle for the vitamin bottle, she shoved me backward. I stumbled against the bed frame. We both froze in shock at what had just happened. And that's when Noah walked in. He saw his mother with hands still outstretched and me steadying myself against the bed, and something in him snapped. For the first time, Noah didn't hesitate or look torn. He came to me, checked if I was okay, and then turned to his mother with an anger I'd never seen before. "Don't you ever touch her again," he said in a voice so calm it was actually scary. "We're leaving now, and if you can't respect our boundaries going forward, you won't be part of our child's life." Diane couldn't respond, and Noah was already helping me gather the last of my things. Robert and Ruth appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion, to witness Noah's definitive stand with me. The drive back to our apartment was mostly silent, both of us processing what had happened. Once we were home, we had the longest, most honest conversation of our relationship. Noah acknowledged the manipulation he'd normalized growing up and vowed to establish firm boundaries moving forward. We talked about his fear of losing family connections and financial support, and about how important it was to break toxic patterns before our baby arrived. The situation is still complicated. Robert calls regularly to apologize while still making excuses for Diane. Ruth has officially written Noah out of her will again, and we're definitely feeling the financial pressure without that potential safety net, especially with a baby on the way. But honestly, freedom from manipulation feels worth every penny we're losing. We've had 3 couples counseling sessions so far, and they've been incredibly helpful. Noah definitely squirmed during the first one when the therapist called out his conflict avoidance. I'm back on my regular work schedule, and we're slowly setting up a nursery in our apartment, one that we designed together. Noah has started setting up a weekly check-in call with his parents, which keeps communications open but contained. Diane still tries to push boundaries occasionally, but Noah shuts it down immediately now. The change in him is remarkable. As for me and the baby, we're doing great. Just had my 16-week appointment, and everything looks healthy, despite Diane's predictions about my work schedule harming the baby. We're finding out the gender next month, but keeping it between us until the birth. Edit. A lot of you asked about Ruth's inheritance, and if we regret losing out on that money. Honestly, no. That money would have controlled our lives forever. Noah seems relieved now that the pressure is off. We might not be able to afford the fancy stroller or designer nursery furniture, but our kid will grow up understanding that boundaries matter more than bank accounts. Besides, my parents are very happy about becoming grandparents and have already started a small college fund without any strings attached. I never expected to have to fight so hard for basic privacy and autonomy during what should be one of the happiest times in our lives. But in a way, I'm grateful for this crisis because it forced us to address issues that might have festered for years. Noah and I are stronger now than ever, and I finally feel confident that we're going to be okay as parents. Thank you all for being with me through this journey. Your advice and support helped me find my voice when I needed it most.